Investors now own more than 50% of Toronto's new condos. And this is driving up the price of housing for everybody in the city, and across the province as well. The same thing is also happening in BC. So why don't we take a look at this report by Clary Feinstein? It shows that there are couples who make almost $200,000 in this city and can't afford to buy a condo. One of the things driving this is that we're building a lot of condos, but not a lot of rental units. So a combination of cheap credit during the pandemic, a lack of rentals, and a lot of investor money has led to an increase in not only the cost to buy a condo in Toronto, but to rent an apartment as well. Because condos are seen as a cheaper and more affordable investment. But housing should not be an investment. Housing is a thing you should live in. It also doesn't help that every single time we have a conservative government in power, they get rid of rent control. And who is to be blamed for the foundation for investors in our housing market? None other than Mike Harris, because of course. Because he created the perfect breeding ground for investors. Not only removing rent control, but also instituting new regulations that unshackled landlords from unprofitable regulatory restraints that were in place since the 70s. Unprofitable just being another way of saying livable for the average person. Essentially, before, you couldn't just jack up the prices when you kicked out a tenant. Now, you can just change it to whatever you want when you kick someone out. What's absolutely insane is the amount of people who are paying higher in rent than they would be for a mortgage. They can't get approved for a large enough loan from the bank, even though their mortgage payments would be less than their current rent. And nearly 40% of homes constructed in Toronto since 2016 are investor-owned, with them owning about 57% of condos built in the last 6 years, with around 80% of pre-construction condos being sold to investors because condos have proved to be lucrative, appreciating by hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last 15 years. And this is driving that type of housing stock in Toronto. Housing which is specifically not built with families in mind. And there are solutions. We can stop corporate ownership. We can prevent multiple ownership of investment properties. We can put in rent control. We can build more purpose-built rentals. There are so many things that our government can do, but they refuse to do it. Provincial government is responsible for housing, but it doesn't serve to benefit Doug Ford's billionaire developer buddies if we actually do things that are good for the people. For Doug Ford's slogan, for the people, the last two conservative premiers in Ontario have been absolutely destructive for housing. And you can say, well, housing prices have doubled under Trudeau, but they also doubled under Harper. And once again, housing is not a federal thing, it's provincial. We should be pushing all of our parties for the right policies. If they're not going to help the average person, vote them out.